Hey there everyone, thank you so much for being here, thank you so much for watching. In this video I am going to deploy once again a UniFi Dream Router. Now, I already created not too long ago a video about deploying a Dream Router with the most security in mind, so this video is not going to be a tutorial. This will be more me taking you along for the ride. I am going to touch on security, on IPS, firewall rules for sure, but my goals will be deploying the UDR, attaching it to my cloud account for future management, making sure backups are running, segregating the networks to employees, servers, printers, guests, which is not the reality today. I am going to create Wi-Fi networks. I am going to adopt an access point and a switch. So enough talking, let's go over to the computer and start deploying. Join me. Alright guys, so the only thing I have done off camera is to unbox the UDR, connect it to power, connect my computer into it. I haven't yet connected my ISP because I do want to show you something along the way, but let's go ahead and start. Let's open up a web browser and go into 192.168.1.1, and we have the ubiquiti UDR splash screen, which is a very nice touch. Let's click on setup the UDR. The UDR is now going to try to connect to the internet, which it couldn't. But if you have an internet connection that requires PPPoE or a static IP address, you will need to click on other setup options. And this is where these other setup options hide. If you have a static IP, enter it here. Some ISP requires PPPoE authentication. Some of them even require a VLAN to be set up. This is where you will configure all of these stuff. My ISP only requires DHCP. So I am going to plug my ISP fiber cable adapter to my UDR and we'll continue from there. Alright, so I connected my fiber adapter to the UDR and now it has identified an internet connection. So we can click on continue right here. Let's give this UDR a name and I'm going to call it Jay's Auto Shop UDR. I'm going to click on agree and next. I'm going to attach it to my Ubiquiti cloud account. Alright, so I have cleared my 2FA authentication, which I definitely recommend that you configure on your Ubiquiti account. For now, I'm going to continue without a backup and I'm going to configure a backup later on. So let's continue without a backup. Wi-Fi network, I do want to focus on that a bit later, but let's call the first one Jay's guests and the password will be super secret. Click on next. I'm going to completely skip on speed tests. I'm going to provide my manually assigned speeds from my ISP. And all we have left to do right now is to wait about 2 minutes or maybe even 3 for the UDR to process all our settings and provide us with the UniFi management console. I'm going to cut the recording right here and I'm going to continue it once it's done. Alright guys, so you can see that Jay's Auto Shop UDR has showed up in my UniFi cloud account, so we can definitely go ahead and click on it. I do not wish for auto updates to occur. I want to update my UniFi OS and applications on times that I coordinate with the business owner. So I'm going to uncheck these and click apply. And then I'm going to go into console settings. I do want to make sure that backups are going to occur. And I even want to send a single backup right now before I do anything. I am going to download it just for good measure. And I do want to allow direct remote connection. And I'm going to click on apply. So for the console part of the settings, we're done. So let's go back to our applications and let's start configuring our network. Alright, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to create the networks according to the specifications that I've agreed with the client. So let's go into settings and network. The default network is 192.168.1.1. This is going to change. We're going to uncheck the auto scale network and we're going to say it's 10.170.1.0. That will be for, let's call it the management. And I do want to keep this network, let's say, less accessible. So I'm going to switch into manual and I'm going to set the DHCP server to only assign addresses from 100 to 150. The reason is I want this network to only provide a connectivity for devices in some sorts. I want to plug the devices, they were going to receive a DHCP network, and then I will be able to go or log into these devices and assign to them a static IP address outside of the DHCP range. And I am going to change the DNS servers. The first one will be 10.170.1.1 and the next one will be 8.8.8. Third one 1.1.1. Click apply. What I'm going to have to do in order to check everything works is I'm going to open my terminal and ipconfig release and then ipconfig renew, and I do want to make sure I get a new address from the new subnet. That's great. 10.170.1.123. Great. Continuing on to networks, we are going to create a new network. On virtual networks, click on create new, and I'm going to name this network, workstations. I don't want to auto scale the network. This will be 10.170.2.1. Again, switching to manual for every other setting. VLAN ID, VLAN tag will be 2. That's fine for me. I am going to create some content filtering as in work settings. DHCP range will start at 20 and will end at 250. I do want on every VLAN to have some space for static IP addresses if the need comes. Let's go ahead and click on show options and let's go ahead and make sure the DNS servers are again 10.170.2.1 and then 8.8.8 1.1.1. Click on add and let's go ahead and create a new VLAN. This will be for servers. Again, no auto scaling. 10.170.3.1. Manual VLAN ID 3, that's okay. Actually, for this network, since it's servers, I do not want to enable DHCP at all. This network is going to be static IP addresses only. I mean, no device should ever be granted an IP address automatically to this network. So, just for good measure, I am disabling DHCP altogether on this network. And now we're going to create one last VLAN. It will be J's guests, no auto scaling, 10.170, and I now want to give it some sort of an off the pattern kind of a subnet. 192.99.1. I want to make it very, let's say, visible that the devices on this network are outside, or quotes, outsiders. Let's click on manual. VLAN ID will be 99. Isolation, indeed I do want isolation of this network. Devices on this network will only have connectivity to the internet and nowhere else. Content filtering, of course, I'm going to provide some content filtering. I'm going to select work. DHCP server will be as wide as I can. Let's click on show options. DNS servers will be 8.8.8, 1.1.1. I don't even want these devices DNS queries on my device. I'm going to send them all outside. Click on add. And for now, we are done with the networks. Let's go back to Wi-Fi networks, because I do want this Jay's Guests Wi-Fi that we've created on the wizard. I do want to assign it or attach it to the new guests VLAN. So in network, I'm going to change from default to J guests. Everything else, for now, I am not going to bother from within this page right here. I do want to change settings over here on the global AP settings. I am going to leave the 2.4 channel width to 20, but I am going to take the 5 GHz over to 80, and the transmit power, for me, what works best is to keep it at auto. Let's click on apply changes, and now let's create another Wi-Fi network. Let's call it Jay's Employees. This will be a Wi-Fi network that will have connectivity to the workstations VLAN. Password, again, super secret. And the network will be workstations. Let's click on add Wi-Fi networks. And actually, when it comes to, let's say, the connectivity portion of the setup, we are done. We have our networks, we have our Wi-Fi networks, which of course we'll test later on the video. But what I do want to focus on right now is actually some security portions. In UniFi, the default is when you create a VLAN, excluding of course VLANs that you assign as guests, every VLAN can talk to every VLAN by default. What I am going to do is I'm going to create a firewall rule that will prevent any VLAN talking to any other VLAN unless I create a firewall rule to explicitly allow the traffic. So the first thing that I want to do is actually go into profiles, and IP groups, create new. I'm going to name it Jay's Trusted VLANs, meaning these are the VLANs that I do want to allow a connectivity between them. So let's say it will be 110.170.1.0/24 and .2/24 and .3/24. We have our management, we have our workstations, we have our servers, and I do want to include printers. Although in printers later on, maybe it will be in another video, I am going to do some restraints on the traffic to only allow it on printer related ports. So let's click on add and apply changes. And one more group that I want to create is RFC 1918. I'm going to mention 10.0.0.0/8. All right. The reason I've created this group is this will be the group that will first of all facilitate the block any internal traffic without me allowing it. So let's click on apply. Let's go over to the firewall portion, click on LAN, and click on create entry, LAN in, and call it block inter VLAN traffic. I'm going to select drop. Group will be from any network that's on the RFC 1918, which is actually any internal network. Destination, again, the same one. Click on apply. Click on LAN and make sure this rule is active. And again, create entry, LAN in, allow trusted VLANs traffic. I am going to accept, and now I'm going to select in the group J's trusted VLANs and destination J's trusted VLANs, and click on apply. Go back to LAN and make sure that this rule goes above the block rule, because firewall rules are processed top to bottom. So now what we have done is we have created a reality where unless we have defined a firewall rule to allow certain traffic, it's going to default into this blocking rule and traffic will be blocked. I am going to also enable country restriction, and I do want to block, for example, North Korea. This customer has no businesses in North Korea or in Iran. And you can of course add as much countries as you want. The rule of thumb is to block certain countries that you definitely do not have any business on or do not expect traffic to come from. I'm going to block both directions. Click on apply changes. Moving on towards the bottom where you see suspicious activity, I'm going to set it to notify and block. I'm going to leave it as is for now, but I do want to add the dark web blocker and malicious website blocker. Click on apply changes. And actually for the, let's call it, security portion of the video, we are done. All we have left to do as per the customer's request, we are going to adopt an access point and the switch. Luckily, the UDR has two PoE ports, so we can adopt the access point and the switch very easily without needing a power outlet. So what I am going to do off camera right now is to unbox the access point and the switch and plug them in, and I'll come back to the console to start adopting them. Alright, so a few moments later both devices show up. Let's start with the switch. Let's click on click to adopt device. This will take about a minute or two. So let's go to the access point and click on adopt and adopt device. The switch is already updating. I guess this access point was already part of another deployment. I'm going to try to factory reset it and try again. Alright, so a few moments later the switch has finished updating. The factory resetting the access point helped it to get adopted, and I'm going to update it a bit later. But for now what I want to do is, since both devices received an IP address from the DHCP range, I now want to go and change their IP addresses to static ones. So click on the device, click on settings, and from DHCP change to static. And this device is going to be .2. Great. Same for the access point. Click on settings, scroll down, from DHCP change to static. So now both devices have been adopted. Their IP address is now assigned, not assigned from DHCP, but from a static IP address. What I do want to try right now is to configure a switch port to be on the workstation's VLAN and connect my computer into it. So let's go into port manager, let's select port 5 and change it to preferred network workstations. Click on apply. Let's go back to the UniFi devices. I am going to give it a few minutes, and now I'm going to disconnect my computer from the UDR and into port 5 on the Flex Mini. Let's go back to our terminal and ipconfig renew. And now we are getting a 10.170.2. something. And just as a reminder, if we go into settings, networks .2 was indeed my workstation's network. So going back to this devices tab, I want to verify that I can ping any one of these devices. So ping .10.170.1.3, and I get a ping reply back. And as a reference, if I'll go into settings, firewall and security, go into LAN, and for a brief moment pause the allow trusted traffic, meaning that this rule no longer applies since I'm on a different VLAN from the UniFi devices. If I now go and try to ping the same device, let's see if I get a reply or not. I do not, because right now inter-VLAN traffic is blocked, meaning that our firewall rules are working as expected. But now I'm going to re-enable the rule. And the last thing that I want to do is change the devices to a more descriptive names. So let's click on the device, go into settings, and say USW Flex Mini reception, and same goes for the access point. Go into settings, UAPAC Lite, let's just add reception. This is where they'll be stationed. Alright, so the names are changed, and now I'm actually going to click to update. And in this point, I'm going to wrap up this video. We have deployed a UDR, attached it to our cloud account, made sure backups are running, deployed a few devices, an access point and a switch, created a few firewall rules and enabled security features, and we've accomplished everything that was on our task list. So guys, if you think I've done something wrong, or maybe I could have done something better, I urge you, please go ahead, write a comment in the comment section below. I am definitely not fixated on doing things just my way. I definitely appreciate your input here. If you like this video, please give it a like, and I will see you all on the next video. Bye everyone.